And I don't know if you may have seen, but Ryan Williams went on the went on John Gruden's podcast, John Gruden's show. First off, if you hadn't seen John Gruden's video that he posted where Nate Oates sent him a bunch of swag, it was super cool. He posted it over on Instagram and Twitter. Really, really cool to watch. I really recommend it. I'm pretty sure I retweeted it. I thought there were some really cool polos and different things that were kind of posted. And obviously having a guy like John Gruden that's very well known, well followed, shouting out your coach, talking about Wimp Sanderson, talking about how well you're doing as a program. That's just publicity that helps and eyeballs that helps your team. But Ryan Williams went on the show with John Gruden and was asked about the loss to Vanderbilt. And Ryan Williams was originally like, hey, Vanderbilt came out, they were more prepared, they were just a better team. And John Gruden asked him regarding next season, what's kind of the team's mindset going into that? And Ryan made the comment that it's going to be like killing an ant with a sledgehammer. So I guess the question becomes, I want to field it to everyone. Do you like the mindset? Obviously, I think that the killer mentality, that type of mindset of like we're going to crush whatever comes towards us, is a great mindset to have. So I'm okay with the mindset, but the question becomes, are you okay with that being put out? And the reason I say that is, this is a perfect example of why Nick Saban, was very specific with the media, with what he said, what he allowed players to say, what he allowed coaches to say, and who he even allowed to speak to the media, right? He famously didn't allow his assistant coaches or freshmen to speak to the media, and was very reserved on what they said. Even very famously, we had the defensive lineman. My mind is completely going blank. Defensive lineman for the Philadelphia Eagles. Was asked regarding what he think about a certain team, went to say something, immediately paused and like, nope, not going to say it. Right? That was Nick Saban, him knowing like, hey, I can't say what I'm actually thinking because, Nick Saban was very particular on exactly what you could say to the media and what you could not. Right? And because he didn't want to give a team bulletin board material. The same way with when you celebrate with your teammates. You don't celebrate, putting it in people's faces, going in there. That's just not the kind of person you are, because it's all about perception with the opposing team, not just with your team, right? You wanted to make sure that you didn't give somebody bulletin board material, that you obviously did your best, and that you made it about the game and not about whatever you said. So my question kind of becomes, do you like what Ryan Williams said? I think that the mentality is okay, but, what are your thoughts about putting it out in the media? Diego Pavia has already responded, with some song lyrics, and it seems like he's like, oh, we're just going to brush it off our back kind of thing. We're not worried about them. So obviously a little bit of trash talk going on kind of in advance of the, I guess, pseudo rematch for this upcoming season. Obviously we will break down that game in a ton more detail when that rolls around. But obviously this is, some kind of off-season news that has stirred up a lot of question, right? A lot of talk about, do you like Ryan Williams' comments? Like I said, I personally like the mentality, but I don't know that I love the comments. Like I said, I like the mentality. I like that that's the intensity that the team is taking into a game like that. But I do think that there is some possible issues with saying something like that out loud on a national podcast, on a video that's going to be seen by the opposing team. That is bulletin board material, right? That's no different. And I know the Cover Crimson guys talked about it, but that's no different in a degree of what Nick Saban said last year, right? The difference is when with what Nick Saban said last year about the lack of home field advantage, that was a factual statement, right? Nick Saban was saying, hey, they don't have a ton of home field advantage because they don't, right? Even though Alabama lost that game, Alabama had more fans in Nashville than Vanderbilt did. So what Saban was saying was a factual statement. Now, did Vanderbilt still use it as bulletin board material? Sure. But, what Saban was saying was purely factual. What Ryan Williams saying is much more of a trash talk mentality, right? So I agree with the Cover Crimson guys and what they said from that standpoint. But the question becomes, like, does it really matter, right? Does it matter that one was factual and one wasn't? Because I think they're being taken in the same way from the opposing fan base, from the opposing team of like, hey, we're going to use this as a way to prove that we belong. And, if you're going to call us an ant that you're going to crush with a sledgehammer, like, we're going to show you. So I am very curious on everyone's thoughts on that one. Like I said, I really like the mentality from the team. I don't know that I love it being kind of portrayed as like, hey, this is what we think of the opposing team, but I definitely like the mentality, and I'm very curious to see, does that come to fruition? Does Alabama not just talk the talk, but do they walk the walk? Because that is inevitably that's what's going to happen this season. Is you're going to have to prove that's the mentality you have from an offense and a defensive perspective.